Hello everybody, welcome back to Out of Body's 31 Days of Halloween. In today's Haunted Memphis episode, I'm going to be talking about the Victorian Village, which basically consists of Victorian era mansions all along this one street in Memphis, and supposedly they are haunted. So let's get right into this video. So the first home I'm going to be talking about in this Victorian village is known as the Woodruff-Fontaine house. Now, if you live in the Memphis area, you've definitely heard of this house. I think this is probably one of the most well-known mansions in this Victorian village. If you live in the Memphis area, you probably know that it's located at 680 Adams Avenue. All of these houses in the Victorian village are located on this Adams Avenue. So the house is known as the Woodruff-Fontaine house because of the families who previously owned it. So the first person who owned the house and actually had it built was Amos Woodruff. I hope I'm saying that right, Woodruff. So Amos was a very prominent, very wealthy man in Memphis at the time, back in the late 1800s, and he actually had a successful carriage business. So Mr. Woodruff was actually president at one time of the city council. He also ran for mayor a couple of times. He presided over some banks, and he even invested in the railroad. So since he was so successful, he decided to have a house built for him and his family. And not just any house, but an actual mansion. So the house was built in 1870. So Mr. and Mrs. Woodruff had a 19-year-old daughter who actually got married in the house. So she was the first one to get married in the house. And her husband actually lived in the house, which sounds weird nowadays, you know, but when you see kind of how big this house was, they had a second floor suite all to themselves. So they pretty much had their own space in this home. So unfortunately, a few years after that, Molly's husband actually passed away. And just a few months before he passed away, she gave birth to a stillborn daughter. Her husband and her daughter actually died in the same room in the house. Not at the same time, but in the same room. So Molly continued to live in the home after her husband and her daughter's death. So she lived there alone with them for about another 10 years, almost 10 years. And then she ended up marrying another man by the name of James Hennings on June 14th, 1883. About 6 months later, she gave birth to another child, but unfortunately that child was also stillborn. So unfortunately, Molly ended up never having any children. Unfortunately, she died of heart disease when she was 56 years old. So the second family to purchase the home was the Fontaine family, so that's why it's known as the Woodruff-Fontaine home. So Nolan Fontaine and his family purchased the home from the Woodruffs in 1883. Nolan was also a very prominent person in Memphis. He was heavily involved in the cotton business, so he became very wealthy from that. Mr. and Mrs. Fontaine ended up having 8 children, and so it says in this book that they ended up having a lot of parties because of that, you know, birthday parties and things like that. Both Nolan and his wife died in the home. Nolan died in 1913 at the age of 72. He died of kidney failure, and his wife died some years later at age 82. So after the house had basically outlived, so to speak, these two families, the house ended up being purchased for an art academy. So it was an art school for a few years, until that art school moved to a different location. So the house stood empty for a few years after that, and then it ended up getting restored and opened up as a museum in 1964. So now that you know the backstory, I'm going to go more into the hauntings that apparently have happened there. And this home has actually been featured on Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters. I don't even know if that's a show anymore. I know it used to be back when I was in high school. I'll be honest, I don't really know if that's still a big show anymore. But it is pretty cool that this home was featured on that show. So apparently the daughter of the first family, the Woodruffs, Molly, apparently some say that her ghost still haunts the home. Apparently she has been seen in her old room that she had when she was still living. The bed in her room, I don't know if it was her original bed or not, but the bed that is in her old room currently, apparently people have seen impressions on the bedding as if she had sat there or something, but the bed has been roped off because it's a museum, so people can go in there and walk around, but they can't sit on the bed. So, but apparently the people who work there have noticed All of a sudden, this impression forms on the bed as if someone is sitting there, but nobody is. So Molly's ghost is known to be very friendly, a very warm presence, although there is something interesting that apparently she has requested of people, which I find this kind of funny but also interesting, because I've heard in other sort of ghost stories and paranormal investigators, different stories I've heard that sometimes when a person dies, they may or may not know they've actually died. A lot of times whoever the current resident is of that particular home, they will notice furniture being moved. And supposedly, when that happens, it could be because the ghost of the person who used to live there had their furniture a certain way. And so now that this new family is here and has moved the furniture, the ghost of the person who used to live there is like, okay, that's not right. I don't want that over there. So it's kind of funny in a way, but also, I don't know, it's just interesting. So apparently, as far as this home goes, at one point, a psychic medium came into the home and went up to Molly's old room and then came back down, kind of feeling like looking pale and feeling kind of lightheaded, like she'd seen a ghost, obviously. And she explained to the staff member there that she was a psychic medium, and so she told the person that Molly's room was rearranged the wrong way, and that her bed was near the wrong wall. So apparently when that medium went into that room, she either received a message or maybe saw the ghost of Molly, who knows. Apparently she wasn't real specific about it, but she just told the staff member to move the bed. And that's not the only time that Molly does something like that. There's actually a paranormal investigation that was done in this home by someone local, and they put it on YouTube, and I'll have that link down below for you guys. I watched it and it's very interesting. One thing that the paranormal investigator mentions in that video is another instance of a staff member who I think was moving some furniture around in her room, in Molly's old room, and then she all of a sudden hears this woman whispering in her ear, like, no, put the bed over there. And the staff member, the person moving the bed, thought it was her boss, I think. And so she kind of turned around and then went downstairs to find her boss and said, did you tell me to do such and such? You know, and she's like, no. So that's pretty creepy, but, you know, I mean, you like what you like. If you want your bed over there, you want it over there. So apparently Molly's old room becomes cold without any cause that they know of. Sometimes it'll have a kind of musty odor for no reason. So Molly's old bedroom is known as the rose room because the room is decorated in kind of a rose-colored wallpaper. And this is the actual room where both her first husband and I guess both of her babies that were stillborn died. So apparently at one point a tourist that came to look at the home got to Molly's room and started to have trouble breathing. And after that point, she went to one of the staff members and asked them who died in this room. So I'm not sure if she was a medium or if she just kind of could sense things and just knew, but that's kind of crazy. So they say that the paranormal activity, especially that specific to Molly, is kind of heightened between the months of February and May, because that's the time of year that both her first husband and her baby died. Apparently during that time, sometimes you can hear her crying. At one point, some staff members heard her crying. They went upstairs to see what was going on, if someone was up there. The crying stopped at that point, and then when they went back downstairs, it started up again. So they've also heard sounds of a baby crying and of a mother kind of gently whispering. So another eerie part of the fact that people see kind of a divot in the bed sheets sometimes as if someone is sitting there. If that's not scary enough, other people have seen the divot or the bed sheets kind of wrinkled, and then they've immediately seen them smooth out as if someone put their hand over it and smoothed it out. So it's almost like she'll lay there, get up, notice that someone's in there, and then smooth it out to fix it. So most people have felt and heard Molly's ghost, but some people have actually seen her. Apparently at one point there was a grade school class that took a tour of the home. A 7-year-old boy went and asked his teacher what happened to the lady that was sitting in that chair. There have also been a few psychics that have come into the home and who have gone up to her room and sensed her and actually seen her ghost. And after that, they were able to point her out in some of the old photographs that they have in the museum of her. So now that we've talked about kind of the positive and the good presence that's there, you know, I'm sure she lingers there because she wants to and because she just has a lot of memories in the home, because she didn't actually die in the home. She died in her sister's house. So, you know, it's not like she died there, doesn't know she's dead. She died somewhere else, and, you know, I assume she probably lingers there because she loves the home, you know, she wants to stay there for a while longer. But there is apparently another entity there that is not so nice. And this entity tends to remain on the 3rd floor. So Molly tends to be on the 2nd floor and on the 1st floor. I don't know that anyone's ever witnessed her on the 3rd floor. But this other entity that seems a little bit more negative has apparently been sensed on the 3rd floor. I wasn't able to find, I don't think anybody's actually seen him, or at least I couldn't find any first-hand accounts of that. But nonetheless, many people have sensed him, have sensed that there is a negative male entity up there. Some people, when they are up there, they will smell cigar smoke. Some people will just have the kind of feeling that they just need to get out of there, that they're not wanted there. They'll just get kind of an uneasy feeling. Other people have actually been pushed, which is pretty scary, because you don't typically hear about spirits that are able to do physical things, although it's not impossible. Granted, I think it would take an extreme amount of energy for that to happen, but apparently more than one person, and I think one man has had this happen on more than one occasion where he's gotten pushed by this ghost. Now, though this particular ghost has been a little bit violent towards men, apparently he tends to be even more violent and more often acts up when women are around, which I thought was interesting, but you can kind of find out why when I tell you who they speculate that this ghost is. So apparently one of the former directors recalls being pushed down the stairs, which that is terrible. Apparently another woman felt like she was being pushed along by somebody and then later was pushed into a bedroom. Now, on one occasion, when a man went up to the 3rd floor, he had the exact opposite experience. Apparently he sensed a spirit who was at ease and wanted him to stay there and was glad to see him and comforted him. Because of this, they think the ghost could possibly be the ghost of Evp-Fontaine, of the 2nd family that owned the home, who apparently died in 1918 in the home of influenza. So the reason why they think it was Elliot is because he was rumored to be kind of a gay socialite kind of man, and he was also a bit snooty from what people say when he was alive. So that's why they think that this entity that's in the 3rd floor could have been him. I don't know if when he was living in the home, if the 3rd floor was where his room was. I assume it probably was. But I think it's interesting that there are 2 specific ghosts that now inhabit the home, one from each family. So there's Molly of the Woodruff family, which they were the first family that owned the home, and then there's Evp-Fontaine, possibly from the 2nd family that owned the home. They both currently haunt the home, but they are on different floors. So it's kind of interesting. It makes you think, like, do they know that the other person is there? You know, are they both aware of each other in the home? Do they think that they're the only ones there? Or are they aware of each other and that's why they kind of stay in their separate quarters? Who knows? It's kind of interesting. I thought that was really fascinating. Now, the one thing that's a little bit sad is that there have been a couple of paranormal investigations in the home. Obviously, one of those was on ghost hunters. The one that was done by a local man, whose video I will link down below, he did a few EVP sessions. He included those sessions in the video, so I'll let you guys watch that. But in the video, you can hear a couple words that come through. Now, one of them that comes through that is the clearest is also, in my opinion, the saddest. And you can tell by the audio in the video that there wasn't a person in the room that could have said the words into a microphone or anything like that. So I do believe it's legit. Reason being is that they increased the volume extremely when each of these words was coming through on the EVP, and you can hear like the room noise. You know, it's like real fuzzy sounding. It's really loud. but the words that come through are very, very faint, although clear. And so there's really no way that a person could whisper that quietly, in my opinion, from what I know about microphones. And, you know, I'm a singer, musician, and narrator too, so, you know, I know what microphones can pick up, and, you know, the human voice can't really whisper that quietly necessarily, in my opinion. So I think that this was a spirit that came through, and when you listen to it, it's just, it can either make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, or make you feel really sad, or both. So what comes through is the word tears. And then right after that, there's a clear sigh, like someone says tears. And then they say eternal. So it's like tears, eternal. If I can, I'll include the audio in this video. But I thought that was really interesting because, you know, maybe that was Elliot's ghost, maybe that was someone else's, maybe that was the ghost of Molly's first husband, you know, who knows? Obviously it's someone who's maybe really sad, and that always makes me sad when I hear, you know, things like that come through on a paranormal investigation, because it's just like, you know, that person had something tragic happen, or maybe they just feel alone, you know, and they don't know what to do, and they're really sad, and they feel like it's eternal. They feel like it's gonna last for eternity, and that's just really sad to me. Alright guys, so that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, give this video a like if you like this type of content. I really enjoyed making these videos. Honestly, I like making these almost better than anything I've done on this channel yet. So I'm pretty excited. Maybe eventually I'll expand to doing other cities instead of just Memphis. But feel free to comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about these stories. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's not? Would you like me to go to the house and do a paranormal investigation? I do believe they actually have ghost tours that go to that home and do investigations at night, so I may do that eventually. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and you guys have a great night, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!